Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market. This is our daily show from Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. BST, every day of the week, where we discuss all things to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make some or a lot of money on the internet. I'm your host, Bchek. I'm joined by my legendary co-host, Legendary, and my other legendary co-host, Sammy. And we have a special guest today. We have Stephen back with us. He's the founder and CEO of Niftify, also very early investor into Bitcoin and ETH. So cannot wait to hear all of his insights on the whole NFT market, as well as the more broader crypto macro stuff that we're going to get into in just a little bit. But just before we do that, as a reminder, friends, that nothing that we say here is financial advice. This modern market is incredibly risky. Nothing that we say is for certain. We don't know anything for sure. So please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out the way, Legendary, it is Wednesday. It is the 19th of June. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
GM, doing quite well. There's two things on my mind. On the one hand, layer 0 airdrop eligibility checker is live. Seems like most of the people received a pretty small airdrop. Basically, all of my wallets are in the range of 100 to 250 layer 0 tokens. But if you think about the effort that they put into the Sybil checking, the witch hunt, the public campaign, and then to distribute what seems to be breadcrumbs, I find that quite hilarious. That's the one thing. And the other thing is I'm starting to doubt my own sanity. Yesterday, I have surpassed 10K transactions on Blast on my Ledger wallet, because basically all the Wolf game, all the Cambria, all the YOLO I do on the Ledger. And I don't know why I do that. I'm starting to doubt myself, because it's literally insane to not do that on a hot wallet.
I don't know. It sounds pretty normal for this space. I think I can think of more insane things in this space, to be honest. Sounds very responsible though, which is maybe the more surprising thing. Good to model.
Being responsible is insane in this space. This is exactly where I'm getting at.
I see what you mean. Stephen, I see you nodding along there. What are your thoughts on the responsibility / insanity, the insanity of being responsible in this space at the moment?
Yeah, I was about to say, I think I'm good. Thank you. I was about to say, it's like 10,000 transactions on a hardware wallet at what, like 10 seconds per approval. That's a big chunk of your year so far, huh?
Legendary, have you actually done the maths? I bet you have.
No, I haven't. But if I think about it, Blast has been only live for what? For 1.5 months. So that's 100,000 seconds.
I thought you were just going to say Blast has only been alive and then give us a proportion of how much of your life it's been alive for.
So that's 1,666 minutes. How many hours is that I spent? 27 hours. 27.6 hours that I spent. So more than a full day of the last month I've spent approving transactions on my Ledger.
Outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. Well, hopefully that airdrop is obviously coming next week. So we're going to be reporting on that, and the layer 0 stuff. We're going to be coming onto that as one of the headlines for today too. So we'll get into that news in a little bit too. Sammy, it's been a few days since you've been with us. How are you doing? How are things on your side?
I'm good. My voice is a little bit croaky because I'm still recovering from a couple of days off. But yeah, actually, as soon as Legendary mentioned that he was running the caves, I got a little bit concerned that he caught up with me. So I went and had a look at the ranking. But I can comfortably say you're far behind me still. So hopefully we'll get that bigger Blast gold allocation. You've got to pick up your game.
Is this the reason you came back on the show after a couple of days of a break to farm Wolf game, outperform me, and flex that on me?
Well, to be honest, I was actually in bed just farming it for about 6 hours a day. So, but I think you're ranked 200. I'm ranked 29. So,
yeah, I farmed like 1 million points yesterday, and was thinking I'm catching up to you, but you have like 8+ million points or something like that.
Yeah, so 0.5% of the supply. So hopefully, got to maintain that though. I don't want to get diluted.
Should be fun. Should be fun for sure. Right. That's the little introductions done out of the way. Let's get into the headlines, as always, brought to you from the snapshot, which is pinned up top on the Twitter, in the Twitter space. Remember, we're live on X video. We're live on YouTube video as well. Let's get into it. So starting with some price action, I'm going to share this on the screen for the people who are watching in too. things are kind of flat again. Bitcoin is at 65.1K, which is down a percent. ETH is at 3.5K, which is up a few percent. We're going to talk about why in just a moment. Solana is flat around $138. Headline number one today, which we're going to get into in a bit. SEC closes investigation into Ethereum as security with no action against consensus. ETH is up 3% as a consequence. The quick headline there is that on June the 7th, Consensus sent a letter asking the SEC to confirm that the ETF approvals in May, which were predicated on Ether being a commodity, meant the agency would close its ETH investigation. And the SEC responded saying they will not pursue any enforcement action against Consensus. So we're going to dive into that in a little bit. Next, GCR returns. The legendary trader GCR returns to bet Martin Schreli $100 million that DJT is not an official Donald Trump coin. This celeb coin thing just will not go away at the moment. There's some deeper point to be made about where we are in the market for all of this stuff to be happening. And that's what we're going to be getting into when we discuss that headline in just a little bit. And finally, in terms of the headlines, Bored Apes down to 8.8 ETH, Penguins 7 ETH as the NFT route continues. We spoke yesterday. We gave a big deep dive yesterday into the blend lending market, kind of explaining how the huge amounts of loans without lenders was going to cause like a big problem and probably lead to a lot of liquidations. I hope that explanation was helpful. I posted a video of that yesterday on my timeline if anyone wants to tune in for that again. But the price is still going down. So we're going to dive into that, see what the state of that market is at the moment and what any implications of that will be. Getting into some NFT price action, we've got CryptoPunks at 26 ETH. Bored Apes at 8.8, as I said. Mutants at 1.5, down 10%. DGods at down 10% at 0.7. Captains down 7% to 2.9. Azuki's down 8% to 3.2. Penguins down 18% to 7. Mad Lads chilling at 66 Solana. So this stuff on the Solana side seemed to be immune to this action. The Nouns winning bid was at 4.5. ETH, legendary. That is the price action. Those are the headlines. Is there anything catching your attention before we get into some of these numbers and the bigger headlines?
Yeah, I mean, if we take a look at the Mintify heat map, as you said, it's not only the top collections, but also the other ones that are being affected by or still being affected by the blur situation. So there's no point in just going for all of them and saying that they're down bad. Maybe let's rather look at the exceptions, which today seem to be Pixelmon up 13%, and that's pretty interesting because it's against the trend of the Mon token that is still vesting inside of the NFTs. Mon token had a 10% crash yesterday, recovered now again today, and is only like 1% up. In terms of major announcements, there was just an update on the anime. So it seems that there was a bit of floor sweeping going on, and that was not necessarily correlated to the Mon protocol token price. Okay. In a similar vein, the founders, the Pirate Nation, the founder pirates also have seen a pump over the last 24 hours. Not as strong, just a couple of percent up, just 4% up. However, that is contrasting yesterday where they've also seen a significant dump. So it seems that they've been maybe a bit oversold with the general collapse of the NFT markets and have managed to recover back to like 0.85 ETH floor.
Okay, so I guess we're kind of looking around the market because the headline stuff, as we already mentioned, was down aggressively. Sammy, was there anything catching your attention? And maybe we want to go to Stephen here as well to kind of think about, zooming out a little bit, what the implications of this type of aggressively down market. Sammy, anything else catching your attention first?
Yeah, so just I guess in the similar vein, just looking at some of these green collections. So Mockaverse, they've just gone live in pre-market trading on Avo.
Oh, have they?
Yeah, so Avo's just made an announcement about an hour ago. I think it was trading when I last checked around 10 cents, which I think is up 3x from the public sale price. But there's barely any volume, so it's an indicator, but I don't think it's necessarily a reliable measure.
Just for people to know, just to come in on that quickly, the public sale price for Mocha was high, wasn't it? That was one of the highest FTVs I've seen at 350 mil. Is that right? Is that?
Yeah, that's correct. So, I mean, you got to remember though, so it's more an infrastructure play. It's the Realm network. They raised, I think it was 32 million, at a reasonable valuation. So, which I don't think was disclosed, but you kind of expect it to probably go at that level, because if it was going to go any lower, then they've already raised funding for that amount anyway. So, it kind of justifies it to an extent, but I think there was some fairly lofty expectations around where it could land after, and the pre-market trading, although there's barely any volume at all, that kind of indicating around the 1 billion mark. So kind of like a 3x from that public sale.
Fair enough. I think, yeah, we've spoken about pre-markets before. We make the kind of disclosure every single time. Very, very difficult to trust in their entirety. So take that data with a pinch of salt at the moment, although we still like to look at it as an early indicator. Stephen, definitely want to come to you here. What are your thoughts on this market at the moment, where these NFTs are just so down and seem to continue?
I was just looking earlier actually at the 7-day, and it's even worse. Like, so Pudgy's down 34% over 7 days. Little Pudgy's 32%. So yeah, it's pretty brutal out there. Mutant Apes down 20%. Look, I mean, I don't really know if this is. It almost feels like the delayed crash from a few quarters ago, right? So like really kind of when OSF and Mondo and them started dumping their apes, like, if we didn't have, what was it, $300 million basically pumping into the market, incentivizing people who don't want NFTs to buy them at a loss and then sell them to somebody else who doesn't want them either. Right, like, so basically we've had this, the market crashed a long time ago. We were just kind of being like zombie, like living on like the money coming in from the airdrop farming. Really, that's kind of my take on it. I actually think we probably ended up now with a worse like a dump than we would have if we just kind of taken the pain back then. Because what's happened now is, like, I stopped buying NFTs because it's the major thing to determine if this thing is if you're going to make money or lose money is if you could kind of sniff out what the farmers are going to be doing to each other to dump their prices, right? Like, and if you're not going to do that the whole time, like, I'm running a startup, I buy these things because I want to collect them and hold them for the long run. But at the same time, I don't want to have, farmers dumping on me, just after I bought something. So I've kind of been sitting the market out until because it's like toxic assets that are just floating around in this kind of washing machine. And I think it's just the chickens have kind of come home to roost, and we just have to take the pain, and hopefully, like, when it's kind of all washes out, we can go back to like a real market that's being driven by actual people trying to own these things. So that's kind of my view. I've been kind of waiting for this final capitulation for a while. So I don't think it's really unexpected. I think the big thing to watch out for is, well, what happens post TGE for Blur? Does this come back? Are there new sets of incentives that are kind of going to be doing this again? I'm hoping that we kind of go back to a bit of a more kind of normal market with actual organic demand.
Interesting. I love that imagery of just this toxic washing machine of assets that are just going round and round in a circle. I think that is basically what this system has kind of facilitated. Since we're kind of on the topic, this is one of the headlines for today. So let's just dive in a bit further here. One of the key points you just mentioned there, Stephen, was what's going to happen next, because obviously the liquidity is getting pulled because the end of Blur farming season 3 is coming. That's kind of tied into the Blast TG as well, which is next week. Legendary, maybe coming to you first, how are you seeing this shake out in the next week or two? I know we can't say with anything for certain, but are we just going to press repeat and go turn the washing machine back on and play the same game, or are we going to go back to a market with a bit more organic demand, which I think people would actually prefer? But what are your thoughts there?
I think that very much depends on the incentive system that we're seeing for Blast Season 2 and how that's going to tie into Blur. and there's loads and loads of rumors flying around from NFTs being able to be bridged over to Blast, be able to farm native yield with them, to Blast integrating ordinals, which I don't think is that likely in the current environment. So I think we have to wait to see those incentives and how they will look like. B, CBB have announced that they will come back after a couple of weeks and set up a midterm loan structure going forward. So A, they're taking a break, and B, they still want to be involved in the game. And even in their complete absence, and even if Blur wouldn't continue and Blast wouldn't continue those incentives, there's just a vacuum that someone else might want to step in and try to fill, whether that's another farmer, whether that's another platform. I just think now that we've seen how successfully it is to run the toxic washing machine, very much love the analogy, we won't live in a vacuum for too long, and either the washing machine will be upgraded by Pac-Man, or someone else is going to build their own washing machine and present that to the world.
Okay. I think I like this idea that on some level, like these people are going to come back. As you said, CBB said he's going to come back and provide this liquidity. In all markets, there's always a market maker in the end, right? And I guess people tend to think that's a good thing. So I guess and market makers, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not like super well versed in this stuff. They also don't have a super vested interest in the asset as such. Like they're just there to facilitate the market. So would it be unfair to say, well, all of these liquidity providers, these people providing these loans, they're just kind of making the market. Yeah, of course, they're not interested in the asset, but neither are maybe traditional market makers. Therefore, it should all be fine. Like in the end, someone's going to make the market, and this is an efficient way to do that. What would be the incorrect thinking there, or is that going down the right line? Stephen, maybe you can come in on that. We'd love to hear Sammy's thoughts as well.
Yeah, so I think the big difference between like a traditional market maker setup and what we're seeing at the moment is just the amount of money that is essentially paying market makers to run a losing strategy, right? So they end up doing things, and they'll, a traditional market maker won't collect 10% of the supply of a token that they're busy like market making, right? It's just too risky for them. But in the current market, you can offset all of that with your points and your gold, and then also the people kind of use this as a PvP tactic, where's one farmer kind of trying to nuke another farmer, right? And then there's just collateral damage. So I think it's just the excess capital that's coming in that's distorting the strategies that are being run. And they're not market making strategies, they're farming strategies. And market making is kind of a side effect of the thing actually making their money. Whereas with a real market maker, they're running risk. They're kind of making sure that they, don't build up too big of a position. It's just a very different game that's being played, right? So even though market making is happening as a side effect, it's not the main the driver of value there.
Got it. I think that's a helpful distinction to draw between market making and the farming that's taking place, because I guess people might be scrambling those two up a little bit. Sammy, you weren't with us for the last couple of days. How, like, from your perspective, looking at the market, because I know you're deep in this stuff as well, like, how are you viewing this general collapse? We spoke a lot about the lending side and how the lenders have disappeared on Blend. That's why some of this is happening. But how are you looking at it with fresh eyes?
I'm just looking to see where it's going to go, because I think we're seeing sort of layer twos adopt certain collections, whether it's using Doodle as an example, moving to base. You've got obviously Blaster NFTs, which are refundable NFTs, native yields, quite an interesting play. So whether there could be some bridging to Blast. I just think there's going to be a different structure in NFTs, and maybe it'll become a little bit more segmented on each of these layer twos, depending on the benefits that they can actually bring to it. So while we were previously used to trading NFTs on ETH mainnet, there might be a case for a slightly different trading structure, and you might have individual market makers for each of these layer twos, and it could be a completely different market, potentially a more mature market. But yeah, it's just I'm interested to see what happens after TGE, whether there's some curveballs in there for Blur specifically. Maybe there's some sort of differing incentives that have better outcomes than we had on ETH mainnet. So yeah, certainly excited for 1 week away. But I think that what Base is doing and the traction, I was looking at the numbers, doing some benchmarking in my newsletter yesterday, and just looking at the activity on each of these layer twos. And actually there's a significant amount of activity on Base. It's not necessarily getting the coverage at the moment. Blast is upticking. I think Pac-Man sent a quote tweet of the Blast scan activity, and that's increasing as well. And you'd expect that to be decreasing based on the noise we're hearing on Twitter about Blast is going to be dead after TGE and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, there's a number of things that I'm kind of keeping an eye out for, but I think the market is going to be shifting quite significantly over the next 6 months, depending on incentives.
That's a really, really interesting point. That actually feeds into something we're about to talk about, because the discussion point for today comes from a tweet by Brad, who I see in the audience. Maybe it would be great for him to be able to join up here if you're able to, Brad, where he kind of zooms out, looks at the market in general. Everyone's saying that people seem to be getting bearish or cutting themselves up because it's the summer. Just zooming out, looking at the market in general. One of the points in there is about the pretty impressive activity going on L2s. And that is interesting to me. I don't know the technicalities of whether that's possible or not, and what way you'd go about bridging this stuff over from mainnet to L2s. But that, given how, like, I'm kind of, the way I'm thinking it through is, given how much traction there is on L2s and how that seems to be a successful experiment so far, maybe there is a world in which a lot of this NFT activity moves over to L2, whether that's the traditional assets or whether it's the new assets that are kind of created. It will make more sense for them to exist over there. Let's go through that tweet, which is a bit broader than what I just described, because it had a bunch of other points. Then I'd love to get your reflections on whatever aspect take your interest the most. So this is a great thread by Brad, where he said, tired of all the bear takes amidst the most bullish structural environment crypto has ever seen. So I compiled the things you degens have somehow forgot about amidst rugging each other on the 73rd G-tier celebrity meme coin launch. So we've got a number of interesting data points here, which I'd love to hear your thoughts on in a sec. Number one, protocol TVL has been up only since Q3 2023 and still rests below all-time high. So TVL is on the rise. Stablecoins are experiencing a similar rise, up only since August of last year, still resting below all-time high. So that's on the up. The BTC ETF, this is really mind-boggling numbers, to be honest, is the best performing ETF of all time, with 15.6 billion of inflows to date, and almost 5% of all Bitcoin now rests in those ETFs. Venture capital raises are just starting to hit 2018 levels, despite the asset class being 3x the size. Next, Coinbase is showing corporations with established user bases a new method of monetization, yielding $10 million a month on Base. That's how much money Coinbase is making a month on Base, which is pretty impressive. On that point, Coin is up another 400%. On the RWA front, BlackRock straight up said blockchains have won and specifically called out Ethereum. That was in the kind of battle between private versus public blockchains. They consider public blockchains the place to build. There's a couple of other points here too, but maybe I'll leave it there for the moment. Maybe we'd love to throw to Brad first, who I believe has joined us up on stage. Brad, what inspired this post? Which of those little details were kind of most impactful to you?
Hey, good morning, guys. Yeah, honestly, like it's inspired me because everyone's talking about, like, is it over? Is everything going crazy? And I just, like, looking around the room, because I'm a pretty steady-handed person. I like to think I do long-term trading, and I was just like, yeah, man, like, I don't see how anyone can be upset right now. And like I did a post yesterday where I saw that, like, over the last 3 months, yeah, a lot of sectors are down, narratives are down, and actually RWAs was the only thing that was up over the last 3 months. So, like, maybe that's a little indicative of why everyone's a little upset. but I was just like looking around the room and said, yeah, man, everything is pointing up, and not even to all-time high levels. So not that that's like a guarantee, like are we not at the top, but still a lot of data points that were just saying like, yeah, guys, chill out. So yeah, I just went like down a list of like everything that I could think of that came to mind over the last couple of months and tried to throw it into a thread. There's even stuff I missed, right? Didn't talk about the ETH ETF, didn't talk about a bunch of shit. So like, yeah, a lot of structural stuff. And out of that, like you mentioned the L2 activity stuff. Yeah, super interesting, right? Because activity's at an all-time high, but fees are actually at an all-time low, which is probably why activity's at an all-time high. But yeah, I mean, it was all interesting. I didn't have one that really jumped out at me. Maybe just like protocol TVL kind of a thing, just like right up top. And then Polymarket obviously was one that surprised me at how dominant they have been in that scene, getting quote tweeted by Donald Trump and shit. So yeah, man, tendrils are everywhere, and like we're gonna be in a political cycle. It's like there's just so many catalysts ahead of time that I felt the need to put together to kind of like push against the noise.
Love it, man. Appreciate your work. Thanks so much for sharing it. It was very, very helpful to have a read through. Definitely some data points there, which I kind of felt, but didn't actually know the precise numbers. So appreciate your work there. Let's go around here and ask what is either standing out to people the most or catching people's attention the most. Sammy, maybe we'll start with you here. What did you think out of these particular data points? What was most interesting to you? What was telling you something about the market?
Well, I was going to make a joke there about prediction markets. What things predicting about? I stopped myself. Yeah, I think that the prediction market one's interesting for me, just because I think that's a natural fit for crypto. We see all these bets, and we probably touch on the GCR 100 mil thing soon. But you see all these escrows where you have some rando just escrowing hundreds of millions of dollars for a prediction or a bet. So I think just having some sort of decentralized alternative is perfect product market fit. I don't think we've necessarily seen the full potential of that yet, and I think that could be something that hits the mainstream. I think the 15 billion of net inflows, like I think we saw 0.8 billion last week go out, and probably contributed to the adverse price action for Bitcoin specifically, but probably the wider crypto market as well. But sure. I do think that there's predictions that I think it's 150 billion will go into these Bitcoin ETFs in the next sort of 12 months. So, which if that is the case, then I think we do have that structural change that has that consistent demand squeeze on the supply. So that is something that I'm watching quite closely. And then there was something else that I don't think you touched on in the thread, but later down, Brad touched on, so Ton Keeper and Phantom Wallet, I think downloads. Now we've seen quite a lot of traction with Telegram, and also Solana having that retail market fit. So those are two things that I'm just watching closely. And I think Legendary mentioned previously about wanting to dig into the Telegram ecosystem, because I think that and the Ton network is something that, I mean, it's broken into, I think, the top 10 coins. So I think that could be something that kind of keeps gaining traction over the coming months, just because it's got ridiculous distribution with 900 million, I think, monthly active users. So those three things stood out to me. But like Brett said, there's so many things in there that it's hard not to be bullish on the market, even though we've had a little bit of a correction in price recently.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's a nice little summary. I don't know if we need to go around much more. We got a lot of headlines still to cover, so we'll get into those in a second. But Funky, your hand is raised. Maybe I'll just come to you for a quick question or comment. What are your thoughts on the general state of the market and this fairly bullish post that Brad has written to save us all?
I'm glad that Bred's out here saving us all. But I'm just going to say, shout out to Bred. That was an amazing thread. This is my third ride on the merry-go-round. I was not panicking at all. I feel, I know anybody who's done this multiple times knows this is just how the market moves. And I think the thing that I wanted to just come up and say what I found most interesting, because I've been shouting it from the rooftops for so long, and I know Bred is also, quote unquote, omega long on coin. I thought the data on coin and Coinbase and what they're doing in that thread was also probably something that maybe was glossed over a little bit by others. But again, as an American, as someone who uses Coinbase, everything, I thought the thread was masterful, but I just wanted to give a shout out and a highlight on the coin stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, I know you've been dropping your coin theses a lot for us, Funky, so we appreciate that as well. Right, let's get into the main headlines for this today. As always, they're pinned in the snapshot, which is pinned up top. starting with the consensus news. So this is pretty big. I guess the kind of key point is that the SEC has closed its investigation into Ethereum as a security with no action to be taken against Consensus. A little bit more context from the actual website. I'm going to share it on screen for the people who are watching in on X or on YouTube. They say, after declaring in 2018 that Ether was not a security, in 2023, the SEC secretly decided to claim power over this digital asset as a security and has been conducting an invalid investigation into Ethereum. Consensus went on the front foot on April 25th, 2024, and sued the SEC to defend the Ethereum ecosystem, seeking a court order that would halt the SEC's investigation on the grounds that ETH is a commodity and therefore the SEC lacks jurisdiction to investigate or regulate it. Following our lawsuit, numerous policymakers, including members of Congress and the public at large, voiced concern over the SEC's Ethereum 2.0 investigation. And on June the 7th, we sent a letter asking the SEC to confirm that the ETH ETF approvals in May, which were predicated on Ether being a commodity, meant the agency would close its investigation. Today, the enforcement division of the SEC responded by notifying us that it is closing its investigation into Ethereum 2.0 and will not pursue and enforce any enforcement action against Consensus. That is pretty good news. I've actually got the letter that the Securities Exchange wrote to Consensus here. Interestingly, like obviously as a former lawyer, this is always interesting to me. So I know that on the one hand, people have taken the information and been like, oh, great, that means that this is wonderful news. It's fully closed. Everything is great. They completely leave open in the letter the possibility to continue the investigation, go after them again should they wish. So like, look, I think it's probably closed, and I think you can safely say if they wanted to do something, they would have done it by now or wouldn't have responded like that. But just so you know, in the actual letter itself, it says, while we do not agree with this notice, or otherwise agree with the factual statements or legal conclusions set forth in the June the 4th letter. So this is the SEC saying, we do not agree with you and we do not agree with your legal conclusions. Based on the information we have as of this date, we do not intend to recommend an enforcement action by the Commission against your client, Consensus Software. We are providing this notice under the guidelines set out in the Securities Act, which states in part that the notice must in no way be construed as indicating that the party has been exonerated or that no action may ultimately result from the staff's investigation. So when I'm reading that, it's saying we don't agree with you. We're not kind of admitting anything. We're not saying that you are definitely right. We're not saying that we're definitely wrong. We're just saying that at this date in time, we are not going to pursue anything against you or your client. So whilst the market has obviously taken that as quite bullish news, ETH was obviously up 3% against the rest of the majors, which were kind of pretty steady. I just wanted to point that out, the little clarification, because I guess the market is taking this as entirely positive, which it probably is. This is just lawyers being lawyers and being a little bit more careful. Legendary, I want to come to you first, and I want to go to Stephen here to get some thoughts. What are your thoughts on this news for ETH? Are we out of the woods? The SEC and the rest of the regulatory bodies are completely on board, and we can resume business as usual. What are your thoughts?
No, I find that clarification or that extra commentary very, very helpful. And we are not fully out of the woods in terms of that there's still the ongoing case of the swapping and staking on MetaMask, and whether that is something that is relevant to the SEC from a securities perspective or not. So that is yet to be determined. Nevertheless, very good news, and especially connecting that to Brett's thread that we just spoke about, where one of the facts that he pointed out was that 5% of the entire BTC supply is already in the hands of ETF owners. So to say that extrapolating that data point for ETH and thinking about how that ETH approval and that extra regulatory clarity might impact the ETH price. And we've been speaking about ETH as a deflationary asset ever since its upgrade to proof of stake, and how it has been net deflationary since that upgrade has happened. It could be quite a good setup for a very, very positive price action for ETH. So all things combined, that's very, very lovely news to have over the last 24 hours.
Yeah, I think definitely people have responded very, very positively to it. Stephen, would love to hear your thoughts on it. You're obviously early to Bitcoin, early to ETH. Like, where do you think we are in ETH's development here? How significant do you think this news is? What kind of significance do you attach to it?
Yeah, so I mean, so reading between the lines, I think what the ACC was saying there is like we would like to take them to court, but we can't politically afford another loss right now. Like, I mean, that's basically what they're saying. And I think if the winds change enough in their favor, they want to leave that door open to be able to kind of pursue that agenda.
Hmm.
I mean, I honestly don't think that that's going to happen. I heard somebody say there are more crypto owners in the US than dog owners at the moment, and you'll never see a political party go out and say we're pro cats, anti dogs. Right? There's no upside for that, right? So I think until the election is done, I think we've got quite a lot of cover there. But it definitely there's some reluctance there, right? So they don't really want to kind of be in this position. So I think there's always a chance. But the other thing that's happening now is the longer that this kind of the ETFs are out there and people are starting to operate under the kind of assumption that that's like a tacit approval, the more difficult it becomes to walk that back in the future, right? So every new product that gets approved, every new bank that builds something on Ethereum, every new ETF issuer, this all just kind of makes it more difficult to walk back. So I think generally quite positive. And I just kind of broader market sentiments, like we're 3-4 months early on all-time highs. We haven't had like any rate cuts yet. Like we've run up almost 200% in like a few months, and now we're consolidating for a few weeks, and everybody's losing their minds, right? Like I think people have just been so desperate for good news, and then when we got this run up after the Bitcoin ETF, everybody is just they just want it to be true that we've full on in bull markets. But I think we're like very normal for this stage of the market cycles. It's just that we had a bit of an early start with the good news from the ETF approvals. So the market just kind of needs to catch up. So I'm pretty bullish. I think the next 12 months structurally is the best we've really had for crypto. On top of that, I think for Ethereum specifically, there's a lot of stuff that's happened in the last little while. All these L2s, account abstraction, like much better wallet infrastructure. The Coinbase wallet is really, really slick. So I really think we're kind of in this position now where for the first time, we could actually build internet scale apps that can carry on growing and won't be cut short by the market basically imploding or the like the networks being fully congested. So I'm quite hopeful that we'll see a few products launch in this cycle that are divorced from the underlying value of the actual ETFs. It's like we're really in this strange world where like you don't see Web2 companies kind of losing all the users because the database software that they used had a bad month in on the stock market, right? Like it's like we were so used to that is what we're living with, but it's bizarre and not how like tech products grow normally. So I'm hoping that we kind of start getting to the point where we're not constrained by networks anymore, and you actually can have products that kind of live on their own. So I've never been more bullish.
I love that point. That's a really good point about the reality of tech products and how we kind of live in a strange bubble at the moment where it just doesn't really operate the way things usually should. First point is that I love that this show's turning into a bit more of a bullish show. We had Bread's tweet. We've got this more bullish sentiment as well. The second point, in line with what you said about how like ETH's upgrades have meant it can just do more things now, and kind of touching on what we were saying beforehand as well. There was this tweet by Hunter Horsley, who is, I can't remember what position he is at Bitwise, but obviously they're a fund that helps investors get access to Bitcoin and crypto. but one of the other things they do is try to help investors understand what else is happening in the space. And they shared this on Ethereum. This was actually the numbers I was thinking about when we were talking about L2 transactions. 2 days ago, they shared this, and they said transactions in the Ethereum ecosystem have grown 84.65% since last year. The contributions from L2s are remarkable. We couldn't be more excited for the future. And I'm sharing that chart for the people who are watching in. Remember, we're live on video on X and on YouTube as well. So if you want to watch these visuals, you can see that there. But yeah, I feel like there's more to reflect on this L2 side of things. We've obviously spoken about it a fair amount, but there's more to unpick there. I think we won't have time to do that here, but definitely something to dwell on, I think. Right, we've got a couple more headlines before we end the show today. We've got about 15 minutes left. Legendary, I don't know if you want to do Layer Zero first. We announced that, or Layer Zero announced that their airdrop tracker is live. It's going to go live tomorrow, I believe. Do you want to explain what Layer Zero is, why people perceive it to be so valuable, and anything else about the airdrop that you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Eligibility checker is already live. So basically, you can not only check if you're eligible, you can also check the amount of Layer Zero tokens that you will be eligible for. There is already a pre-market for Layer Zero. I think it's trading at around $3. We'll double check that in a minute to not spread any false information there. In terms of what Layer Zero is, it is a protocol, basically an omni-chain protocol allowing different blockchains to communicate with one another and driving forward that chain agnostic stake that we want to reach in Ethereum, driving forward that cross-chain liquidity is a thing that tokens can exist across different chains in a native form without being wrapped and bridged around. And that's basically a tech stack that loads and loads of protocols from bridges to DeFi protocols have been using. So there is, if you've been active on various L2s and have bridged money around and have used a plethora of DeFi protocols, it is more likely than not that some of your wallets are actually eligible for this airdrop. So definitely worth checking that.
Awesome. Anything else to really say on that? I guess this is one, I guess we make the same announcement that we always do around this time. Make sure you check the right links, use the official stuff at these points in time. It's very, very easy to get scammed by false links, get linked to wallet drainers and things like that.
Yeah, I think important note on that is that that eligibility checker doesn't require you to connect the wallet. You don't need to sign anything. You don't need to do any transaction. All you do is you paste the wallet address. So if you're prompted to sign anything or to do a transaction, you're definitely not on the right side.
Sounds good. Okay, I don't know if we need to do any more on that. That's just more PSA. Let's get in.
Sorry, one more point, because I looked it up. I was saying Zero is trading at $3. It is actually on Avo trading a bit above $4. It's trading at $4.4 with 1.7 mil volume over the last 24 hours.
Not bad. Not bad at all. Okay, that's pretty good. Just conscious of time, let's get into the Web3 roundup now. Then we'll hit the final headline with this DJT coin and what on earth was going on with GCR yesterday and what that means for the rest of the market. So as always, the Web3 roundup is brought to you from the snapshot, which is pinned up top. Let's see what we have. Number one, Ronin parts with Polygon to launch a ZK EVM layer 2 for enhanced gaming. That's interesting to see those two teams partner up. Next, Drift partners with Ondo Finance to include RWAs in the DeFi ecosystem. They say today's launch of Ondo and Drift's partnership and Drift launching USDY as collateral marks the beginning of tokenized real-world assets being used as margin for perps while earning additional borrow and lend interest on top of treasury bill yields. Interesting to see there. Packmoon announces V3 incoming after likes going private impacted V2. Layer Zero launches its token airdrop checker. Pre-markets is about $4, as Legendary said. Verify by Fox News will transition to a Polygon ZK L2 to scale verification of media. Again, L2s, lots of moves to L2s. Fantasy Top adds new heroes into the game for cohort 3, including fan favorite, modern market favorite Bread Guy, Clemente, and Beanie. And finally, lending platform Morpho goes live on Base. That's the roundup from everything else that's been happening in the space in the last 24 hours. We have one final headline to look at, which is the Donald Trump, the DJT coin escapade episode, reality TV drama. I don't know how best to frame it. I'm just going to give like a minimum summary and then we'll just go around thinking about the market here and what on earth is going on. So from Tyler's summary tweet yesterday, this is the summary of what happened. Someone challenged Schreli to bet $1 million that DJT is a fake. That bet was accepted. He asked how high it could go. GCR, obviously the legendary GCR, whose tweets everyone fawns over on crypto Twitter, comes in and offers betting up to 100 million. They go back and forth on the terms. Schreli says either Baron or Donald confirms, then the token would be considered real, because they were trying to define like what does it mean for this token to be real. Schreli goes on Spaces saying the bet has been made and waiting on Kobe to wake up for the escrow. GCR was saying it's a cabal backed and he was approached to buy in. Schreli says wrong token and this one is very real and seems very confident. Meanwhile, the token itself has been going on a roller coaster ride in the markets and doesn't seem to be ending. This was yesterday evening. It was at a $200 million market cap after it absolutely nuked after GCR's tweet. I don't know 100% what's going on here. It's very, very difficult to say with any certainty when there are various actors kind of pushing forth their ideas and narratives, both of whom are quite influential. So a bit of a mess of a situation. I don't think we're going to talk about price here necessarily, because who knows what direction it goes. But in terms of what this is saying about the market, Stephen, I'd love to come to you, and then Sammy, I want to come to you next. Like, what's going on here? It seems like a lot of nonsense. It's on the back of a lot of other stuff that's been taking place similar to this. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to know what's actually going on there. But in just terms of markets, this was kind of just before the top for NFTs when every celebrity was like launching their own NFT collection. So I don't know, does that mean we're kind of nearing the top of meme coins for this cycle? I don't know. It's very early. So maybe there's a new crop of meme coins coming out. But I don't know. It's really strange. I mean, I don't know what I think about it. It's obviously gets us a lot of attention, but if you have like a Donald Trump coin that kind of goes to $10 billion market cap and then drops down to, zero again, can you just imagine the press and headlines we will be getting as a space? So I don't know, I don't know, like they say, any publicity is good publicity, but I'm not sure. I think if it's a normal meme coin launched by some random person, I think the press kind of lets that go. But yeah, if Donald Trump supports this and then it drops, I don't know if that's net good for us.
Fair point. Fair point. Maybe taking that question then throwing it straight to you, Sammy, like, does this mean we're later in the cycle than everyone would hope? Because I think that's the nagging thing in everyone's mind, because they're not willing to entertain that idea because they really don't want it to be true. But is it?
I don't think so. I think, to be honest, I think this is just one big game of poker. So they're trying to call each other's bluff. You've got someone that potentially, I mean, he's got a track record with the farmer background, that he's not a very liked character. Ethically, probably did some things that were wrong, but you've got GCR coming back, putting his clout on the table just to try and call him out. And I think there is a lot of what's it called, dick swinging. Like, they're just trying to compete, trying to put each other down. And I wouldn't necessarily draw that to a particular point in the cycle. I think that we've probably got so much more positives coming out of like structural flows from Bitcoin, ETH, like all these ETFs. And as Stephen mentioned, there probably will be some products or applications that have that product market fit that really take off, that kind of are separate from the actual underlying tech. So I just think that we've still got a lot to come, and I don't think we're anywhere near the end at the moment.
fair enough. That it certainly represents the other side of the view, right? Which is there's too much other good stuff going on for this to be too detrimental. I want to go to Legendary next, but just want to share one other piece of information for context. Zach XBT posted as well some further context where he said, earlier today, Arkham announced a 150K bounty for the identity of the DJT creator. At 11:49, he replied saying he submitted for the bounty. At 11:57, Martin Schreli panic DM'd him. And at 12:27 a.m., Martin Schreli created a space and announces he is the creator of DJT. I'm just looking at the DMs now, and it looks like he was also in communication with Andrew Tate. It seems is now also in the story, trying to get Andrew Tate to buy in. Yeah. Okay, Legendary. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, it's fascinating to see how that connects to the post that I had 2 days ago on the timeline that crypto Twitter loves drama. And some people have that incredible talent to insert themselves into drama and make it about themselves. And I didn't expect GCR to be one of those people who's actually happily retired and to come back to just be part of that drama arc again and flex around betting. I find it, I don't know, I find it on the one hand entertaining, on the other hand, I find it a bit pathetic, to be honest. But I also saw one trade that made me chuckle on the whole DGT side of things that I wanted to point out. Was Crypto had shared that, saying amazing levels of mental illness on display on the DJT order books. Guy buys $700,000 worth of DJT, sells and books 230K in profit, enters back again higher 10 minutes later, sells again for 270K loss. Just found that a very, very hilarious trade to point out.
People just can't keep their hand out of the jar at the moment. It's just
it is representative of the levels of greed that we're seeing around the meme coin mania. I mean, imagine booking $250,000 in profits in a couple of hours just to lose more than that 10 minutes later.
Yeah. Okay. I know what you mean. I've got 2 points to make on it, and then we're probably going to close out. My first point is, you know how you started off the sentence. I know you were saying something else, Legendary, but you said like, oh, it's fascinating to see. I can't remember what you said because all I heard you say was it's fascinating. I find this stuff so unfascinating. Maybe people can tell I'm a little bit biased when it gets to this stuff. It's like at the end of the show, I know that it is of interest to people, but in essence, it's just a meme coin going up and down, and people are really influencing it on a big level. And I don't find that interesting or worth a whole host of attention in any way. And I think if there wasn't a load of money at stake, I don't think this would be particularly interesting. So I'm definitely burnt out from all the celebrity coin endorsements, all the celebrity prominent people pushing coins out onto people. I'm completely pro people being able to do that. I think in a permissionless system, people should be allowed to do that. But I'm also protective of my own attention in order to be able to concentrate on the things I need to concentrate on. It's like I would love to not have to cover it anymore, so long as other people don't find it so newsworthy that I really have to do it, which I will do. I will do it if other people think it is so newsworthy. And when it comes to Trump and a presidential candidate, I accept that it will be. Final take.
As you were speaking, sorry to interrupt you, Frank, who was listening in the audience, requested to join us on stage. So also very, very curious to hear his, because his hand went up on that, but immediately requested on your take. So very curious to hear his thoughts on that.
Love it. Frank, welcome to the stage, my friend. It's good to have you with us. What are your thoughts on the DJT saga as we've described?
So I think it is Baron. I think Baron, did it with the boys. But now the question is, did Schreli just kind of fumble the bag for everybody involved? I don't know. So yeah, I don't know, man. It's been a crazy saga to watch. I don't know if it's over. I think what do you guys think?
Did you trade it?
Huh? Did I trade it?
Did you trade it?
Am I trapped in a position right now? A little bit, yeah. Yeah, for sure. But I think it's one of those things where, like, there's so many people, it's clear that are involved in this that it's hard for me to believe that if they try to make Schreli the fall guy, like he's not just going to be snitching on everybody, and then that might make it messier. I think the simplest solution for them is just to send it to Coinbase Valhalla. Then no one's going to ask as many questions. That's my kind of raw take on it. But yeah, I don't know. Do you guys not think it's barren? Like, I think it is, but I don't know.
I honestly have absolutely no idea. I wonder, do you think it's going to be like some murder mystery over the next 5-7 days where like Zach posts something of revealing one aspect of the story, someone else is going to post another thing? Do you think that's how it's going to play out, Frank?
Fuck, it is recorded space. Whatever. I don't care. I'm just an NFT bozo. But look, I'll tell you this. The types of people that have hit me up over the last few days that have like said they know that it's barren, it's like different circles to the point where I'm like, man, this is pretty messy. Like if these are the people that are like that are in the know. And so I figure like if some of my fucking homies that are not like from the startup world, not even really in like the crypto world are saying like, yeah, my buddy knows a friend that knows Baron, and yeah, it's like basically Baron sending the contract address around, whatever. I don't know. I'm like, I think it's fucking Baron. But I think it's just like now it's gotten so messy that they could just pull the hey, it's just Schreli card. But I think if that happens, it seems like there's just too many people that know or have some type of evidence or proof that like it would be hard to bury. So that's where I think it might continue to play out.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking out loud here, I wouldn't think that it would be easy to pull the it's just him if he has all these receipts of talking to various people, right? So I think one way or another, especially Zach's on the case as well, I think the truth is going to come out. Interesting point though that you said, like, you'd heard from a variety of people across the spectrum of people in tech and crypto and maybe NFTs as well. So
yeah, because Mike Solana,
yeah,
not to be confused with Solana, but like Mike Solana, like he's in the startup world. That's the guy that broke the story, and he has very little to do with crypto. Barely post about it. Mostly just post about Bitcoin. And so you just think that a few other kind of little things, obviously, those DMs with like the Tate stuff. It's a lot of worlds colliding on this. And I think obviously, you saw like the man with the goggles. Like we went to the Trump event. Like I don't think people realize, like, I don't know, the Trump kind of cabal is into crypto. Like they just are, they have been. What other presidential candidate dropped not one, not two, but 2.5, NFT projects? The half is the Ordinals one. Like that one's just straight Trump. I mean, like he's in the videos, basically advertising them. He's going around saying he's the crypto president. And so I don't think people should like rule out, Trump doing more things, or that Trump kind of cabal, family members, people like closely connected. I don't think people should rule out him doing stuff in an official capacity, with crypto, which to me as a U.S. citizen that's also into crypto, I am definitely like rooting for Trump. If Trump's saying he's going to be the crypto president, forget everything else. Just for my career, like the industry that we're in, I'm rooting for that outcome. And so I don't know. I try not to get emotional about this kind of thing and just follow it. Maybe bought a little too high on this one, but I don't know. I think there's this, because you guys remember Donald Trump Jr. obviously with the MAGA coin MAGAA on ETH. That started to run up a little bit over the last few days. I don't think the story for any of these Trump like affiliated coins is necessarily over. That's my like vantage point on this stuff.
Yeah, I think I would kind of I would definitely agree with you on that. There's stuff's definitely to play out in the next few days for these coins in particular, and more broadly, it's kind of been identified for a while. I can't remember the term people use, political FI tokens, whether it's on the Trump side, frankly, whether it's even on the Biden side as well, will be interesting to watch as we go into this. We ramp up into the elections in November, when hopefully the market's actually moving higher as well. So definitely something we're going to have to keep an eye on, and excited to do that. So guys,
but the reason I came up was because I saw the title. It says NFT collapse continues. I guess I don't do as many spaces often, but I know you guys are legends. I mean, what's your take? NFTs. I could yap about it, but I'm honestly curious about you guys. What's your take? Are you guys buying NFTs? Like, what's your take on NFTs, on the collapse, the resurgence? How are you feeling about everything?
I'll answer first, and maybe we'll go to Legendary and Sammy as well. But like we did a whole deep dive yesterday on the lending market, Frank, like on Blend, and how CBB obviously pulled the liquidity. It's caused absolute turmoil in the lending markets, and I posted a video for the people who are interested where we did like an analysis of what that means and the implications of that, and how all of these loans are now underwater, and how they're probably going to get liquidated, and how that just creates this cascading effect on the price. So I think in that environment, and I think Stephen was actually speaking to this earlier, anyone who would have been in the universe of wanting to collect something has been scared away by the fact, like, well, look, you've got this false liquidity. They're being tricked into buying it at a particular price. It's not a true price. And so to the extent that anyone actually wants to collect, you feel like it's better to just wait it out. If you want to join a community, well, let me just wait, because I don't want to get wrecked 50, 70% just because some big liquidity provider disappears from the space or wants to go on holiday. Like that's not a reason why you'd want to. That's not an acceptable reason for the price to go down that much. Like you want the price to be a bit more organic. So I think there's challenges on that front. And then we were also speaking about how maybe the interesting thing moving forward, talking about ETH L2s, is how like the activity there has really, really been ramping up. And so with this refundable mechanic, which is happening on Blast, where the creators can earn off the yield of the NFTs themselves, that could be interesting as a different model where the buyer doesn't have to take on so much risk, which they have done previously, buying NFTs at an expensive price, and the creator can also earn at the same time. There's less risk on the buyer. Maybe that's a model that will happen in future. So maybe Legendary, I want to bring you in on there, and then Frank, we can hear some more reflections from you too. Sammy, if you can have some more thoughts as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna keep it a bit shorter, just with regards to time.
Yeah.
I think refundable NFTs, great deal for memberships. We've spoken about that on the show. That makes a ton of sense to basically entrust someone with the money for NFT as long as you're happy with the product, like that Fantasy Top data analytics tool. Good example for that. In terms of the propped up NFT markets, I don't think this vacuum will exist for long. I think CB had said that they want to come back. I think if Blur and Blast won't extend those incentives, which would highly surprise me if that weren't the case, someone else will fill that role. Ultimately, being a market maker for JPEGs is very, or has been very lucrative. CB shared that they lost 4.5 mil. Cyrus still estimates them to make low to mid 8 figures on the Blur airdrop alone. So it is a very attractive position for both farmers and a marketplace provider to fill and enter that role. On the price action per se, if you think about the fact that pudgies are down 30%, might come down a bit more, they're still at a substantial price point, and so are the collections. If you think about like joining essentially a community of other JPEG holders of a few thousand people, you still pay multiple thousands to $10,000s of dollars to do that. And that's, and if you look at that from a luxury good perspective, still a hefty price tag. So yes, they have come down a lot, but it's not like they went, that's for the main collections, and not like they went to zero. In absolute US dollar terms, it's still a quite sizable entry point for the top tier collections to get in.
How's it been from your perspective, Frank? How are you seeing it?
Well, my one other follow up there is what's the last NFTs you guys have bought?
Blast in Pepe's on Blur. Sorry, not on Blur. Wasabi's NFTs where they
The
have
404s?
yeah, they're like 0.069 buy price. There's like some floor lock where you can get that money back. It's both an NFT and a 404, like that kind of mixture.
For me, a bunch of Remilios.
Yeah, more ladies are sick. Yeah. From my perspective,
yeah,
you go for it.
No, I was going to ask you from your perspective, how are you seeing things as someone running a project and just analyzing the market through your eyes?
So I think two things. One, I feel like NFTs in their first era, where we see meme coins today, it's almost like you replace this. So OpenSea, like the new OpenSea is like Deck Screener / like Photon or BonkBot, whatever it is. And a lot of the talent that would have gone into NFTs, in the last cycle are going into the meme coin space, meme coin adjacent, type of industry that's forming today. But for me, I just like seeing that. My only focus right now is just making sure our community is caught up as much as possible on where meme coins are at. So I started like an alpha chat in Telegram, I think like 3 weeks ago, for our community and really just trying to figure it out. I think for me personally with DeGods, I learned a lot from what we did over the bear market, because I feel like we try to fight against the market and time things pretty poorly across the board in 2023. Like we went all out in 2023 with the season 3 stuff, whatever. In a time where it was like rock bottom for liquidity, people didn't know when the bull market was going to come back. And so for me, I think there's a lot of people in our community that pressure me to do something like right now to make them feel better. But I just know, okay, I've been in this space now for almost 3 years. I'd much rather time things optimally and do things at the right time versus just trying to force down, as much as possible at any given time. So even now with like the capitulation that's happening, it's kind of crazy because at least to me, I think about a lot of things in from a common sense perspective. And I do think if you're like a new entrant in the market, it is a hard pitch to buy an NFT. And the reason I ask people these days when I talk to them in the space, hey, when's the last time you bought an NFT? Are you spending X, Y, or Z, on NFTs today? The same people that are very critical. And I think a lot of them are not like buying NFTs because it's just not the moment in time to do that. It's not the moment in time where that's the exciting thing. So I'm like just studying where the space is going, trying to be a student again, and learning more than anything. Less just strictly what's happening in the NFT space, but how all of this is crossing over. So I thought it was interesting. You said blasting, the blasting Pepes, because that is like a 404. Even on Solana, I think almost all of the the only NFT projects I know that have minted out over the last like 3 or 4 months have been these like hybrid NFTs. I don't think they've hit this escape velocity or popularity yet, but there is something happening there. That's like the only fucking NFTs that are minting out. I don't know when the last non kind of tokenized or DeFi adjacent NFT mint has minted out, maybe since OMB, and before that, like crypto undeads. There was a stint of ordinals, but even that, as we've seen now, was definitely coded with the whole runes airdrop meta. And then after the halving, you see a pretty big retracement there. And now a lot of Bitcoin is just like Solana, just like even now Cardano, just like ETH, just like Base. It is this kind of pump fun, new tokens popping up, people buying into new tokens, new memes, pretty much all day, every day. You're kind of just seeing every chain turn into a version of this. For Blast, right now it's Blast Gold. But then after, TGE, my guess is it's going to be similar to exactly what's happening now on Solana, Base, ETH, Cardano, and Bitcoin. So I think NFTs are strong communities,
Yes.
And they will have another day, where there's like an evolution towards them, and I want to be a part of that. But for now, I think those communities give you a leg up in participating in all of the new things that are popping up across not just every blockchain, but even, like every single fucking day, which is why I think it's still a bull market. It's just there's new stuff every day. In the bear market, there was new stuff maybe every week. Now it's like every day, multiple times a day, there's something new happening. Sorry for the long answer there, but kind of a compilation of my thoughts now.
Awesome, man. Appreciate those thoughts. I think you're right to say that the capital and attention that was previously going into NFTs, at least in the bull market, is now squarely focused on the meme stuff. And in general, a lot of other interesting points you made there. So appreciate your thoughts, Frank. Appreciate you always hopping up with us. But just wanted to say we are at time. We've run a little bit over today. Hope you enjoyed the show. We had a special guest, founder and CEO of Niftify, Stephen, with us. Great to have him on the show. Had Frank pop in for some excellent analysis of the market too. Brett as well, keeping our bullish hopes alive with the content. Keep that going too. Just a reminder, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time, 12 p.m. BST, every day of the week. We discuss all things to do with the NFT market, the crypto market, and frankly, any other way to make money on the internet. That is what we do here. We hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you to my legendary co-host, Legendary and Sammy as well. And thank you for joining us. So have a wonderful day. We'll be back again with you tomorrow. Take care and goodbye. See you later.